Welcome to another episode of Ask the Zamboni Experts. I'm your host, Chris Fish. I want to say that I am a product specialist and anything recreation expert. Today we have joining us Brandon Marshall with the Chemours Company and David Gauvin with Trane. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good
morning, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind taking the opportunity to introduce who you are and where you come from. Brandon, if you would like to start.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Chris. So, as you noted, my name is Brandon Marshall. I'm the North American Marketing Manager for Thermal and Specialized Solutions at the Chemours Company. And really what we do at the Chemours Company is we have an over 90-year legacy of producing refrigerants that are used today in ice rinks all across North America and all across the world. And in recent years, what we've been working on is we've been working in a partnership with both Trane as well as the NHL to use next generation low GWP solutions. So a lot of our conversation today is going to revolve around one of those specifically, which is going to be Opteon XP10. David, if you wanted to introduce yourself as well.
Absolutely. So my name is David Gauvin. I am the strategic manager for ice rinks for Trane North America. I am based out of Montreal. I am a hockey player myself and a curler too, and I'm equally bad at both sports. So I represent Trane refrigeration here with more than 100 years of history and background. So my main focus is everything having to do with ice rinks and sports facilities. I too call on the NHL. And at Trane, where some people see rinks, we see not only buildings, but we also see the planet. And one of the things that we are very proud of is called the Gigaton Challenge. So by 2030, we are committed to reducing our carbon emissions, rather the carbon emissions of the world by 2%, which is the equivalent of the annual emissions of Italy, France, and the UK combined. So we take decarbonization very seriously. And we believe that one of the stepping stones to achieve these low carbon emission goals is to help ice rink owners and operators reach their sustainability goals.
That's actually fantastic to hear, especially with a lot of what's going on in the world today. Everyone's trying to get to that next level of technology, trying to create all those efficiencies. And, you know, I come from the old school of making ice, starting in the 80s, working through. So, you know, as things are changing, maybe you gentlemen can talk towards the current regulations when it comes to technology today.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good question, Chris. You know, regulations can definitely be complex, and regrettably with complexity comes misinterpretation, misrepresentation of the information that's important for those of us who are owner operators and who are trying to manage through this. First and foremost, it's really important to establish that, you know, as rink owners, there's nothing that you need to do today, right? So when you hear about these regulations, these are a lot of our local governments, local municipalities who are working and driving more sustainable products in the future. Okay, we'll start with the U.S. first, Chris. I think that would just be a good place, and then we'll move up to Canada here. So, you know, in the U.S., there's a couple different things going on. First, we'll talk about some of the more recent news, which is the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act. And really what that act is that's very comparable to what's going on in Canada with Kigali. So it's a phase down of those high GWP HFCs like 404A and 507. So that phase down is going to occur over 15 years or so. The EPA is still working through that rulemaking, so there's not a lot of detail around it. But we did want to make the viewership aware that the U.S. is going to come on board with a lot of other parts of the planet and working towards that HFC phase down over the next several years. Probably the more important fact for rink owners in the U.S. is really going to be those that are owning rinks and operating rinks in California. So California has been very much ahead of the curve as it pertains to what we know as sector controls. So setting a limit on the global warming potential of certain refrigerants that can be used in different applications. So actually, as of this year, they finalized their HFC rule. And the important part as an operator of a rink to understand is that if you are looking to purchase new equipment for your existing ice rink, you're going to have a GWP of about 750. So that's a limit as to the working fluids that you can use. The big thing when it comes to that is products like 404, 507 are not going to be applicable for rinks moving forward. And really, when I was noting before the product XP10, this is one of those solutions that was designed and developed with a very low GWP. It has a GWP just under 630. And that's really going to be one of the major solutions moving forward as it pertains to new equipment in existing rinks. If you're looking to build a greenfield, brand new from the ground up ice rink, the one major consideration that you have to take at that point is a GWP value less than 150. Now, there are solutions available today from Chemours and others that do meet that value. It's relatively new, and obviously new ice rinks are not coming up every day, so we don't see it as the biggest impact. But really, it's those owner-operators today that are thinking about, what should I do with my old systems? So do keep that 750 GWP value in mind if you are operating a rink in the state of California. Now, when you look to Canada, Canada has been working through a regulated environment for several years now. They signed on to the Kigali Amendment, which is a global HFC phase down that several countries have committed to, including Europe. They too have also set up sector controls as a part of going through that process. And in Canada today, for all municipalities, right now, there's a less than 750 GWP or global warming potential on the books for the entire country. So again, solutions like XP10 are highly applicable in Canada, and it's a lot of the solutions that we've been deploying to date, not only in the US, but in a lot of the rinks and a lot of the arenas that we've been working on over the last several years in both the US and Canada there. So those are the major regulations that I would say are impacting the ice rink operators today. There's not too much else going on. Of course, we're constantly keeping a pulse what's going through the governments for both the U.S. and Canada, so we can provide updated information to the industry. So do keep posted, and if anything happens, we always try to communicate that as soon as we know about it.
I definitely can appreciate with how the industry has changed and is currently changing. Again, when you look back into right up through to the 90s, how the industry was stuck into one standard. We're led to believe this is the only way you could do things. And, as you move forward, you start to see that there's better ways, I guess, if you want to say, towards that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, David?
Well, I think, Chris, what you just mentioned makes a lot of sense. And that's one of the reasons why we linked arms with Chemours to provide solutions to pro facilities and community rinks alike, because we believe that no two rinks are alike, and it's important for people to be able to consider different solutions before committing, or even going very far into a design phase with many solutions in mind based on a holistic approach, making sure that you consider everything that's on the table before you end up choosing a system. And I believe, so I've been in the ice rink business for 10 years now. I trust that, especially over the last years, what you described, Chris, is exactly what happened. A lot of people have realized that there are plenty of options out there, and they're all viable. It's just a matter of finding the right one for your facility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Brandon, you mentioned about the myths when it came to the regulations. Let's talk about some of the current retrofits. For example, the R22. Are they required, and what options do rink owners have?
Yeah, definitely, Chris. It's a very big point. One of my first statements there is sometimes there's a lot of confusion and misinformation out in the marketplace. So I did want to take the opportunity today for those rink owners that are going to be listening in to tell them that there is no regulation, US, Canada, or otherwise, that tells them that they need to rip out their existing system, right? We understand very well that, people are operating under budgets, and especially on the community rink side of things, these are gathering places for a lot of people, right? So there is no regulation out there today that's going to come in and say, you need to take this system out, you need to put something else in, or you need to close down. So I want to just get that out there first and foremost and make sure that everybody's clear on it. The important part, though, as we move through a phase down, especially of HFCs, products like R22 were actually phased out in 2020. is it's important to start planning now, right? For a lot of equipment that's out there that's already installed in rinks today, there's years of life left on that equipment. You know, retrofitting an existing piece of equipment to a new refrigerant is always an option if there's a lot of life left on the equipment, but especially if rink owners are planning on end-of-lifing equipment and looking at some of those options that are available to them, the important part is to really start planning now and understand what those options are. So again, just to reiterate, no regulation out there telling them they need to tear anything out. And the important part is finding those partners that you can work with to help lay those options out, understand what's on the table, understand the impacts of the different technologies, and to start planning for when you want that change to occur.
And I think that's really important, especially by stating that, because again, people need to start doing their education and looking for those answers before jumping the gun and all of a sudden saying we need to and we have to, based on, you may want to say rumors or just misguidance. And, you know, for a lot of these facilities that are either looking to make that change, this is actually great information to be understanding.
Definitely, Chris. I completely agree with you there. And the important part too, and you know, don't get me wrong, when you talk about government regulations, there's a lot of paper to sift through. But all the GWP limits that we're noting and all of these important topics that we're noting, these are public information. So if if viewers do have questions about it, if they have concerns, if they want to read through those regulations themselves, don't hesitate to hit the internet there. It's very easy to find them. Or feel free to reach out and contact either Trane or Chemours. We're more than happy to walk you through those regulations and what those look like and where you can find that information and vet it out on your own as well.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, guys. One of the things that I found quite fun and interesting, again, as somebody who's actually been into a lot of facilities, sold the machines that go into these facilities, is every facility that I ever went into, what I thought was absolutely fantastic is their ice was the best ice. So it did not matter whose facility you were in, their ice was the best ice. So for you guys, what does it take to make good ice?
That's very funny, Chris. You're absolutely right. Everyone is very proud of their ice, and rightly so, because
Rightly so.
to your point, Chris, I don't need to tell you or tell our audience today how to technically make great ice. There are resources out there. One of my favorites is the ASHRAE Refrigeration Handbook, in which there's a very interesting chapter on ice rinks. So some other quality teachings come through word of mouth, right, from generation to generation. But you're absolutely right. My ice, our ice, is always the best ice. But if you dumb it down a bit, essentially, what does it take to make great ice? Well, essentially, we're freezing water. I sometimes like to bring that up because at Trane we believe that an ice rink should be safe, simple, and sustainable. Safety and sustainability in 2021, everyone's going to agree on that. Now, when it comes to the simple part, I think it's worth highlighting because indeed we are freezing water, and the equipment that I supply that's in the mechanical room, as everyone knows, is going to supply brine or glycol at around 10 degrees Fahrenheit to the piping in the slab, which can be concrete, sand, or even the ice itself. That's the easy part. The ice doesn't know the brand of the chiller in the mechanical room. The ice doesn't know what refrigerant is in said chiller in the mechanical room. So what really makes good ice or great ice is the people. The magic happens on top of the slab. And Chris, you will know about that. You've been involved with rinks for a long time. It's about the guy that's doing the painting, the guy that's driving the resurfacer, the guy that's taking care of cleaning the ice, the ice technicians. These are the guys that make a difference, and that's where the magic happens. So it may seem weird for a guy that's dealing in refrigeration and refrigerants to say, well, it's not that big a deal. But don't get me wrong, it is that big a deal because you need it. But I really think what makes the difference between any ice and the best ice out there is the people that are taking care of the ice.
Couldn't agree more. And again, like I say, I'm old school. So the way that I used to make ice is nowhere near to where people are making ice today. But again, everybody is always proud of their own sheet. And, you can't ask for better when you go into a facility because it's just that passion. And it's always good to see that passion.
And that's true in hockey. And I think that's even more true when it comes to curling.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Curling is a different beast. Absolutely. Those guys definitely love their ice and they do take the time and they're great. They're great. They're great to talk to and how they do things. So,
I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add to that, Brandon?
No, my only comment there, Chris, I thought it was funny you mentioning the old school way of making ice. I'm a strong believer in a lot of cases, if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it, right? And sometimes the old school methods are the best methods, so no worries there.
So I guess if you're looking at some of these communities that you guys have dealt with over the decades, whether it's a small rink up right through to the big multi-billion-dollar facility, what are some of the factors that some of these facilities should be determining when purchasing new equipment?
That's a very good question, Chris. And it's a question that has many answers. You should not choose any solution based on any single criteria. And it's not David who says that, it's not Trane who says that, it's really, well, namely ASHRAE says that, and I think there is a growing consensus amongst the refrigeration community and the ice rink community that sometimes you need to compromise, and in order to compromise, you need to be able to see everything that's on the table and choose the best solution based on a number of factors and not be blinded by a single issue. So one of the things that you need to be mindful of is, well, money talks. Brendan brought up budgets. A lot of community rinks are publicly owned. So you have limited funds available, and you want to make sure that the solution that you're considering you can afford. Not only first cost, but really total cost of ownership. Because I've seen it happen places where smaller facilities, smaller communities, they were considering very, very elaborate systems. And in the end, it has happened in the past where those communities weren't able to come up with the money despite their best efforts. And in the end, the project didn't happen and the ice rink shut down. And we're all hockey players here. We want the sport to thrive. We want our youth to play hockey. So it's important that we keep the existing rinks alive.
I think you touched on a really good spot there, David, because like you mentioned, when you talk about budgets, again, a lot of these facilities are built on the aspect of aesthetics. What does it look like? What can we put inside this facility? What can we do to attract the users that come in? And there's less focus, I think, on the bones of the system. So when you get into the ice plant and you get into the floor and the equipment that's operating that whole piece seem to get overlooked to the fullest, because again, they're trying to concentrate on the maximum occupancy that they can do within a facility. So again, when you're looking at the installation costs, the maintenance costs, they're trying to, at least in my opinion, and again, you guys can, kind of clarify this, industry standard. So when you look at industry standard, those standards based on a large facility, based on a small facility, based on an old facility, based on a new facility, they seem to, in my opinion, get a little skewed. Is there anything that you guys could say, maybe talk towards, which would give somebody a better picture, I guess, as to, this is how we're going to create a system that might be efficient for your facility?
Well, that's a great point, Chris, and you brought up an interesting statistic in that most of the rinks we skate on are in existing buildings. And the proof of that is that we are playing hockey at midnight, right? That to me means that we aren't building enough new rinks, but let's take care of the ones that we have first, right? And that's where our solution represents a good fit for a lot of people, because one example I would give you, I mean, space is a premium in any ice rink, right? But especially in existing rinks, where you often have an older mechanical room based on older standards. And oftentimes, if you want to upgrade your equipment, well, then you need to build a completely new mechanical room. And sometimes I've seen jobs where the cost of the mechanical room itself is more important than the cost of the refrigeration system, right? So one of the things we were very mindful of when we got into the ice rink market was to ensure that we had a very tight footprint. So I have yet, after 10 years in the ice rink market, I have yet to find an existing mechanical room where my stuff doesn't fit, right? And I challenge anyone to find me the smallest, most cramped mechanical room out there, whether it's in Canada or in the US, right? I would love to be challenged on that. But you see, that's one of the things that we are mindful of. And beyond day one, we're also mindful of surveillance and maintenance. So one of the reasons why we partner with Chemours is because their refrigerant is as safe as possible, which means lower requirements when it comes to surveillance, also lower requirements when it comes to mechanical rooms, of course, and also anyone can service it, really. The equipment that we're using is very similar to what you would have in your high school or in the hospital. I mean, we see an ice rink as a building, we see it as a place of assembly. So we are mindful of the safety aspect, but we're also mindful of the fact that oftentimes in smaller communities, you're gonna have some local technicians that are able to do refrigeration work, and there is value in the community of having the local refrigeration technicians take care of, yes, all of the buildings, but also of the ice rinks. So that's one thing that also sets us apart, because we are very open source and literally anyone can service our units. And we also like to provide, let's call it peace of mind. We have, our units have a 10-year warranty. So if you are choosing a solution, and obviously over the first few years of operation, you're going to be strapped for cash because it was a great capital expenditure. But if you have the luxury of having a 10-year warranty, you know that whatever comes up over the next 10 years, well, you won't have any big dollar item to take care of. It's going to be run-of-the-mill maintenance, and that's pretty much it.
I could say to you right now, welcome to the Alberta syndrome, because some of the facilities that we had here, like mine alone back in the day, I could only walk through it sideways. There was no room for movement in that ice plant room. Opening up our electrical panel, you had to step out of the way just so that it could miss the panel on the opposite wall. So there's a lot of tight spaces here. Going to you, Brandon, is there anything you'd like to add, to the overall, the energy efficiency as technology is moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Chris. The big part for me, and David noted it there, total cost of ownership is something that needs to be taken into consideration, right? So if you are looking at making those investments in new equipment, understanding upfront three main important parts: installation costs, maintenance costs, and the overall energy efficiency of the system is going to give you as an operator the best view of what you can expect to have to put into that equipment over time, right? Now, taking a moment on the energy efficiency side of things, because it's definitely an important aspect. With a lot of the technologies that are out there today, the refrigerant is a component in the overall system, right? So when I look at the relationship between Chemours and Trane, we're producing the refrigerant, we're giving them a very sustainable product that has some energy benefits versus incumbent products that would be out there today, installed out in the field today, right? And this is just part of the development of that technology. But also in conjunction with a lot of the technology that Trane uses on their chillers, this makes it a much more efficient product than what you would have seen in the past. So technology is changing all the time. That's inevitable. It's never going to stop. A lot of the equipment that we're providing out into the field today is going to be significantly more efficient than the systems like you were noting that were installed back in '75. And a lot of that's based on the combination of those two components, right? The refrigerant and the overall system itself. You can't attribute it to just one thing. Now, I did want to highlight on the safety piece as well, because the safety piece touches not only the safety of the people that are going to be, occupying that space and utilizing it, but it also touches on a couple different points as it pertains to cost, right? So depending on which direction you go when you're evaluating all of your options, David had noted before ASHRAE, there are safety classifications out there for different refrigerants, right? And you'll see things that are non-toxic, non-flammable, all the way up to highly flammable and very toxic, right? So it's important to take a look at what that working fluid is going to be and what those stipulations are. If it's going to be a toxic, mildly flammable, if it's going to be non-toxic, mildly flammable, there are going to be different stipulations that you have to take into account, especially in terms of sensors to make sure that your occupancy is safe, right? You may have some degree of planning that you need to do for your facility in case there is an alarm and there needs to be an evacuation. Or for some products, you even have to go to the extent of working with the municipality to come up with a plan in case that there is a leak that escapes that facility. So do take the safety side, not only for the users of that space, but also take safety into account as a project cost that you're going to have to look at, not alone up front, but you're also going to have to look at it throughout the time that equipment is operating. So safety is definitely key. I can't emphasize that enough. David is an engineer actually up in Canada, so he's a registered engineer. And one of the lines that we kick back and forth is, first and foremost on the engineering side, safety is always key, right? You can come up with a lot of the latest and greatest, but at the end of the day, if it's not going to function safely and not operate safely and not protect the people that are using it, it's not worth it, right? So it's definitely a major point that we hover on, especially when we're engaging with community operators.
And that kind of goes back towards some of the earlier statements that were said as far as how things have changed so much in the industry. Because again, you start to see more and more facilities taking safety to a higher standard, creating new SOPs, those types of things, trying to create actually standards. Like we have a few organizations up here in Canada, like ORFA, RFP here in Alberta, that are trying to set a new standard when it comes to how facilities are maintained, the level of qualifications that should be needed in order to be a part of that facility, as well as the whole safety aspect from making the ice to right through to the refrigerant.
Indeed, ORFA is a great resource. Thanks for stating that, Chris. Yep, that is absolutely true.
Is there anything else that either of you would like to share? Some of the case studies, the projects that rink owners can look forward for information as they move forward.
Yeah, definitely. We have a couple of case histories that we can talk about here. I like to highlight a lot of what we do with the big arenas, right? Because when you take what we're doing in a big arena, it's much larger scale, of course. But I think if you can prove out a technology and a technology is viable and usable in one of those larger arenas, applying it in the smaller community rinks, curling rinks, things like this is not as challenging, right? And it gives you a good proof point. So one that actually recently went live, we had an opportunity to work with the San Jose Sharks directly with the SAP Center in San Jose, California. And we actually just completed a new equipment replacement with them at the SAP Center, where we took the old systems out and installed completely new Trane equipment using Opteon XP10, not only for the ice plant side of things, but also for the HVAC side of things. So it worked out really well because they had comparable equipment that they were using to manage both, which has a lot of benefits, right? Number one, if you have a couple technicians who are doing maintenance on the equipment, doing emergency service on the equipment, it helps that they have familiarity with the equipment that's sitting right next to each other, right? And it's much easier to learn if they're using the same general principles versus having two completely different systems that may have their own complexities to it. So we really saw that as a big win for helping the technicians out that service the SAP Center. Space, as you guys were talking about before, is also key, right? When you talk about installing equipment in an existing facility and something like an arena, you want to be able to get it into that mechanical room. And we were actually able to not only get both pieces of equipment into that mechanical room, but a slight reduction in space versus the original equipment that was in there as well. You do have some other options, above and beyond just the San Jose Shark Center there and the combination of the equipment that we used, and we'll collect energy data and things like this and be publishing some additional details about that over time. But one of the big reasons why they settled on this is, number one, it was compliant, right? We were under that 750 GWP limit. It met all the specs that they were looking for in terms of the operation and the efficiency of the equipment and how that equipment was going to support building ice, for NHL, right, which they have very strict standards on how their ice is. So between Trane and Chemours and both of our products here, again, really happy to report that install went through really well. The San Jose Sharks are very happy with the installation, and we will have a case study published very soon about that install.
Is there anything you wanted to add to that, David?
Yes, well, Brandon did a great job at describing the latest work we did with the Sharks. A bit prior to that, we revisited the first facility we did for an NHL team at the Ball Arena, which used to be the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado, home of the Avalanche, of course. So back in 2010, we installed ice chillers over there, and they were using a legacy refrigerant, and we wanted to help the Avalanche reach their sustainability goals, and we figured that a good way to do that would be to retrofit the refrigerant in these chillers and use the new low GWP refrigerant that is supplied to us by Chemours. So we went ahead and did that, and in doing that, we found a number of interesting things. Namely, all of our compressors there have been running for 10 years. Our compressors don't require rebuilds, so we were eager to see in what shape they were in. They were in great shape. So were the heat exchangers, both evaporators and condensers. We were also very happy to find out that there hadn't been any leaks, and I mean zero leak, when came the time to reclaim the refrigerant from the chillers. So over a period of 10 years, there were no leaks, and that's important because beyond the refrigeration itself, we need to be mindful that any refrigeration system should, of course, use the best refrigerant out there, but should also have the smallest possible charge in the most leak-tight system there is. So that's what we proved 10 years after day one in Denver. And we actually contracted a third-party company to do an energy audit on this. And what we ended up finding is that while we went ahead with a low GWP refrigerant, which of course is the way to go for sustainability, there were no ill effects on efficiency. So the efficiency of the chillers, which was very, very good by 2010 standards and is still very good by today's standards, that efficiency wasn't at all compromised by using the latest refrigerant technology from Chemours. So that was very interesting to find out. And I personally, I mean, I like all the teams, but I like the Avalanche because they're the ex-Nordiques. I'm in Montreal right now, but I come from Quebec City. I'm still still feel a bit of nostalgia. But the reason why I'm saying this is we've enjoyed a great relationship with the people in Denver, and I really want to stress this. I want to thank the team over there at the Pepsi Center and now the Ball Arena. They were very helpful. We actually had a great time. We had a great time watching water freeze. I think that says a lot.
I agree. That's a lot of. It's like either watching paint dry or water freeze.
Exactly.
And I don't blame you on that one when you talk about the old Nordiques, because again, I was a Winnipeg fan, still am a Winnipeg fan, and then when we lost them to the U.S. and now they're back, so absolutely.
Good for
I'm
you
going to
guys.
kind of touch on a few things here with you, gentlemen. Is there anything coming, I guess, moving forward in the future that people could be looking forward to as far as I don't know whether it's a new technical change of how refrigeration is going to work in the future, maybe how, efficient, creating more of an efficient way of freezing the ice. Like, is there anything that's coming that maybe people might want to be aware of, or things to watch out for? Or am I just kind of speaking on hopeful?
No, no, Chris, that's a very good question. And I would loop back on one thing that Brandon mentioned earlier about energy efficiency. So energy efficiency, of course, has to do with the refrigerant and with the heat transfer materials and with compressor technology. And all of this is evolving in time, needless to say. One thing that is really catching on, and I think is making a huge difference in the footprint, in the many footprints of our ice rink facilities, is considering the ice rink as a building, like seeing the building as a whole and trying to transfer heat as much as possible from one place to another in the building without having to either create it or reject it. And there are many ways, of course, you can do that, but mostly it has to do with the maturity of the heat recovery systems that you see in ice rinks. I mean, all of our ice rinks do heat recovery. I think again in 2021 it is a must, and I think the market has matured to a place where everyone should expect their ice rink refrigeration system to reclaim as much heat as possible. And that is where you can make a big difference in carbon emissions. And that's where also you can make a big difference in your bottom line, because the meter is on the building, right? The meter is not on the ice rink chiller. The meter is on the building. If you take a holistic approach to your ice rink building, you are going to get great gains out of it. It is worth investing the time. It is worth investing the money. It is worth reaching out to professionals. Payback on energy recovery for an ice rink is always very short, and I encourage everyone to follow that route. And I think, Chris, that's one of the things that really is going to be driving ice rink refrigeration technologies for the next 10 to 20 years, is having a holistic approach to the building and making sure that we use just the energy that we really need to freeze the ice, heat the building, and get on with the game.
One of the things that we're starting to notice here quite a bit, and I don't know if Brandon, you can comment towards this, if you're seeing it in the US as well as David, in your areas that you've been to, is we're starting to see a lot of solar panels actually go up onto a lot of these facilities to also help create those energy efficiencies, the green energy. Is there anything maybe you could comment towards that on how the systems may benefit from, say, using solar, going solar?
What I just described with the refrigeration heat reclaim, that is what I would call active heat recovery. Any kind of passive energy that you can get, including solar panels, is always a plus. And as technology evolves, also the cost is going down, right? So those technologies become more widespread. And Brendan, I would maybe leave it to you to maybe present how NHL Green is embracing those new technologies beyond refrigeration.
Definitely. Thank you for that, David. So yeah, as you know, there's a lot of technology out there to help increase the efficiency of the building overall. I would for sure echo David's comments that things like solar, better insulation in the walls even, are going to become more common. The one big area that I do want to hover on as well, and I think it's important for everybody that would be listening in to understand, is taking that holistic approach, right? So as we were noting before and talking about heat recovery, really what this is starting to boil down to is the movement of energy, right? So if you have opportunities to use things like solar, right, to offset some of your electrical costs, at the end of the day, the equipment, the refrigerant, it doesn't care if it's coming from the power plant up the road or if it's coming from the electricity that you're generating off the roof. So for us, we're always open and would definitely, as much as possible and when possible, promote other technologies that would help offset some of those costs. The other side of this as well, and when you talk about, what some of the larger arenas are going to be doing, and I won't speak 100% for the NHL greening movement in this case because they have a lot of their own plans. But, items such as heat recovery are going to be important as we're moving forward, no doubt about it, and it's free money on the table. I can't advertise that enough. And with the correct type of system architecture and the correct type of refrigerant that can manage both of those sides of things, not only creating the ice, but heat recovery, and to that extent, even the HVAC for the building, looking at that overall system efficiency is going to be more and more important.
And there's a lot of misunderstanding about that heat recovery, the costs that might be associated with trying to generate that heat recovery and how it's going to benefit that facility. I know it's one that I've had a hurdle on through many renovations in my career, trying to educate that heat recovery.
I can vouch for the fact that, as Brendan pointed out, heat recovery is not exclusively ice rink centric. And one of the trends that we're seeing, especially in the US right now, is what is called electrification of heat. So a lot of people are moving away from burning fuel, whatever kind it might be, to lower their greenhouse gas emissions. And in order to do so, what you need essentially is a heat pump. And for a lot of building owners and operators, it's a heavy lift to transition from burning fuel to electrifying their heat. Whereas in an ice rink, in any ice rink, you already have that heat pump in there. So, and it doesn't have to be a new heat pump for that matter, right? It may very well be possible that your existing equipment is not leveraged to its full heat recovery potential, right? And I think that's a great opportunity. That certainly is a low-hanging fruit for ice rink owners and operators to not only save some money, but also lower their greenhouse gas emissions as much as it is possible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's actually fantastic to hear. Well, gentlemen, is there any parting words? Brandon, is there anything that, if individuals want to have either a direct contact with you, either through a web page, is there anything more you'd like to share and help get some of this information out?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Chris. Just a couple points from my side. Again, I want to remind people you don't have to go at this alone. There's a lot of people that have a lot of passion around refrigeration and have a lot of passion around ice rinks. David and I are good examples of that. So if you do have questions, if you have concerns, even if you just want to talk about what's going on and see what potential options can be out there, we'll put our contact information below. Please don't hesitate to reach out and send those questions over. This is what we're doing day in and day out, and we're more than happy to help on that. If you're curious to take a look at a couple different case studies, some of the items that we've been working on with the NHL, if you're looking for a couple different proof points or just quick reference documents, you can take a quick search of Opteon NHL. That'll bring you right to our landing page for ice rinks, which has a lot of really good information on it for you to browse through, take a look. There's a contact us form on there, so it's a really quick way to get in touch and also browse through some of the documents that we make available to help educate and inform the industry about what's going on. So those are two great sources of information. And again, can't express enough that we're here to help. And especially as we're working through these transitions, please send your questions over. We're more than happy to answer them.
That's fantastic, Brandon. David, did you have anything you wish to add to that as well?
Well, absolutely. Ice rinks is a local business, right? And if I were in someone's shoes that has to plan modifications to an ice rink refrigeration plant, I would like to get in touch with my peers, right? And Brendan and I have discussed case studies, mainly with the NHL, but I want to stress that we have hundreds of Trane Opteon rinks out there all across North America. So if you are just as much as curious and you would like to get some more information, visiting the website is a great first step. Then you can certainly reach out to Brendan or myself, and chances are we can find a site near you where they have been running a Trane Opteon ice rink for a number of years, and we can then make your own case study. Right? You don't have to limit yourselves to the ones that are available on the web. If you are curious about this, please reach out and we'll have a chat, and we will make sure to put you in touch with people that have been skating on Trane ice, and for you to have an open discussion and again help you choose the right solution for your rink.
That is fantastic. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a numbers guy, and if I can be shown the numbers, and there's a lot of individuals out there like myself, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that the both of you that you have this kind of passion, and you're able to help those out there that are looking for those questions that maybe they're not asking the right questions, or they're being misled in some way. Absolutely appreciate your time, gentlemen. Again, for those listeners and viewers out there, if you have any questions, please heavily encourage, reach out to Brendan Marshall. He is a wealth of knowledge with the Chemours Company. He is the North American Marketing Manager, Thermal and Specialized Solutions. Same thing with David. If you have any further questions on Trane, he's the Strategic Manager, anything recreation. Highly encourage that you reach out, ask the questions, make sure that you get yourself educated. Don't trust just the one solution you're hearing. Reach out, ask questions. Gentlemen, absolutely appreciate your time. Look forward to maybe working with you again in the future, and that's a wrap.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.